Hello, and welcome to the next module in the Industry and Profession in Construction Management. And the next lesson will be industry traits. Yes, construction industry traits. We're going to cover a few key items. Number one, we're going to talk about the construction industry size and the risks in the industry. And there are risks and rewards, and that's a balancing act. And then we'll talk about strategic planning, about getting work and doing work and keeping track of the cash flow and the profits and the losses if necessary. And then we'll get into the construction industry growth, especially the building industry, where it's gotten very vertical and how buildings have gotten very tall. How did this all happen? Well, we're going to talk about that, so let's get started. Thanks. The construction industry, and let's talk about some risk factors. The risk factors start with the fact that the construction industry is a service industry. The construction industry is not a manufacturing industry. In construction, we don't manufacture cars, we don't mass produce planes, we don't mass produce computers or refrigerators. We actually build a product, we build a building, we build a road, we build a highway, but that's what we do, and it's a service industry, a people industry, and time is money, and that's why we see the clock and the money. It's a cyclical industry. We have high periods of absolute great growth, and then there are periods of time when the economy gets quiet and dries up, and things slow down in the construction industry, so it's up and down. And that creates some challenges to the inevitable slow periods that there is risk and reward. Now, with that, we must look at cash. And without cash for slow times, small mom and pop businesses are at risk. So what is happiness? Happiness in the construction industry is simply one thing. Happiness is positive cash flow. So you always want to remember, if you're on the building side, the construction side, as a specialty subcontractor, as a general contractor, as a construction manager, you always want to maintain positive cash flow. You should never be put in a position where you're acting as a builder of some sort and acting as a bank and constantly withdrawing money to keep things running. So let's talk about the size of the construction industry. It's a big industry. Construction's big business. But how big? Let's talk about the size. Globally, it's about 10.6 trillion annually. That's trillion with a T. In the US, it's about 1.3 trillion annually, and that's for both public and private sectors. The private sector being a little bit larger. Well, there are also 800,000 private construction companies. That's pretty enormous. 800,000 private companies in the construction industry. Well, they also employ 6.7 million people, a lot of people. Construction industry is one of the largest industries in the United States and globally around the world. In the United States, the GDP is about 20 plus trillion, and the construction industry represents about 4.3% of the GDP, the gross domestic product. Now keep in mind, every year these numbers change a little bit. They go up, they go down, the ratios change, but this gives you a little bit of a flavor to the enormous size of the construction industry. So going forward, we're going to talk a little bit about the profile of the construction worker, and that's changing dramatically. Every year it changes. It's gotten more professional. The professionalization of field professionals, the superintendents, field engineers. Many are getting educated. They're getting lessons in how to run jobs professionally, and that's starting to pay off. So that's a big change. We're also going to do a case study example of why buildings are so tall. Have you ever wondered why construction is mostly vertical, with buildings obviously, There is a strong horizontal construction industry, very strong, with roads and highways and tunnels and bridges and railways and transit lines and subways. Those are horizontal. But for the most part, buildings are vertical. We're going to find out why they're so tall.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this free lesson from the University of Maryland's Project Management Center for Excellence. If you want to check out more lessons just like this one, click the link in the description below where you'll be able to go to our website on executive project management. There, you can find edX courses, professional short courses where you can learn from an instructor like me, as well as request custom team training for you and your organization. All right, let's get back to the lesson and I'll see you at the end.
But before we do that, let's just stop and talk a little bit about strategic planning. I want you to remember there are 3 phases in strategic planning, and you should all know what they are. When you think about it, it's very simple. Let's talk about the first phase. Get the work. Without the work, you're really nothing. So you need to get the business. That's very important. And you can get that by competitive bidding or negotiated bidding. So there's 2 ways of getting it. Most construction organizations like to negotiate and like to be the sole source. They don't like to bid and go competitive bidding because then their chances are less than 1. So let's talk about joint venturing. That's another way to get into an area to build, especially if you're getting into an area that's a little bit new geographically to your business. So you might want to joint venture with another company in the geographic area that you're going after the project. Another reason to joint venture might be to share the bonding risk. The second phase of strategic planning is do the work. So you get the work, you've got the project, you've got a contract. Now you need to mobilize and do the work. Pretty simple, right? Well, the construction manager at work, and the final phase is keeping score. And that's strictly the cost engineering and control aspect of the project. Now let's talk a little bit about subcontracting and construction management. And of course, there's a picture of the Pentagon. In our previous module, we talked about how the reconstruction of the Pentagon took place with the specialty subcontractors taking the lead role. So the evolution of the specialty subcontractor over the last 100 years has really developed to the point where these subcontractors are very, very sophisticated, have very high levels of management and education. And let's talk a little bit about the collaborative approach of subcontracting. There's one thing that I've always said, that construction managers and general contractors are only as good as its subcontractors. And the reason for that is most construction organizations don't self-perform. Those that do some self-performing work do a very small percentage, 10, 20% perhaps. But you're really only as good as your subcontractors. So the construction manager really needs subs. So you need to cultivate them, keep them happy, keep them on board for current work and future work. So the rebuilding of the Pentagon was a perfect example of how to cultivate a good relationship with the subcontracting market. Now let's jump over to the case study that I talked about. The case study of construction industry growth, and in particular, why are buildings so tall? This happens to be an image, a photograph of the skyline of New York City. Very vertical, especially in Manhattan. So, what were the key advancements since the 19th century that allowed cities, and even some small cities, to go vertical? Well, it all started in the 19th century, mid-1800s, with steel alloys getting very sophisticated and stronger for beams and columns in structural steel projects. Air conditioning got popular, started with Carrier air conditioning, getting very, very sophisticated to take care of the hot weather in warm climates in the summer. And electricity, very simple. We went from gas lighting to electric lighting. And the invention of the elevator, probably the most prominent development over the last 150 years was the elevator. It was invented by Elisha Otis in 1853, and that really got us going vertical. It created an entire industry, and now we have many buildings that go well over 100 stories. Absolutely mind-boggling. So it changed the world. The elevator changed the world. That's why the sky's the limit. So I hope these examples really gave you some sense. That's why the sky's the limit. Well, I hope you enjoyed this last lesson on industry traits and the characteristics of construction management organizations, and in particular, learning a little bit more about the risk and rewards in this industry. And as long as you understand that, you'll be a much better construction manager. So with that, let's get ready for the next module entitled Sectors. We're going to talk about construction management sectors in the business of construction. Thanks. Look forward to you in the next module.
Hey there, did you enjoy that lesson as much as I did? If you did, go ahead and give us a like. If you want to see another one, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, put them below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Moreover, is there somebody in your life who really needs this lesson right now? If so, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Now, we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson where you can learn even more from the University of Maryland Project Management Center for Excellence. Thanks so much.